to all our viewers, all our learners. Today we will be discussing a very important topic in our CEC Gurukul live lectures. Once again, welcome to all our viewers, all our listeners to this live lecture at CEC Gurukul. The topic that we will be understanding today is World Capitalist Economy and Globalization. I am Dr. Amna. I teach political science at SPM College, University of Delhi. As we begin this topic, World Capitalist Economy and Globalization, let us understand first the significance of this topic and from there on the structure of our lecture today. This topic is very important for students of political science, international relations, economics, international business. Also, this topic has a unique significance for all our learners preparing for Union Public Service Commission, UPSC examination and other competitive examinations. So, when we try to understand this topic, world economy, world capitalist economy and globalization, it is very essential at the very outset to understand the meaning of capitalism, and from there on how does the system of world capitalist economy moves forward. Now, to understand capitalism, I would present two very important definitions presented to us. These present definitions have been put forward by renowned thinkers. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, doing well is the result of doing good. That's what capitalism is all about. Another thinker gives us another idea of capitalism, Milton Friedman, who holds that problem of social organization is how to set up an arrangement under which greed will do the least harm. Capitalism is that kind of a system. So when we are trying to look at these two definitions by Ralph Waldo Emerson and Milton Friedman, very essential to understand now the ideas these definitions present to us. Now, these ideas that are inherent in the idea of capitalism are entangled with other issues that are involved while we are trying to understand capitalism, and these issues also have a bearing on world capitalist economy. What we see here is that once there is expansion of capitalism, and for that it is important for us to decipher the history. Then from there on there is free international trade, but at the same time there are problems that whether economic growth was at a pace, the degree and the level of employment, other issues associated with work, namely child labor, women's security, women workers, inequality, poverty, amongst others. Now, Adam Smith, in his very important work, the economist Adam Smith, in his very important work, The Wealth of Nations, holds that the obvious and the simple system of natural liberty is what he understands capitalism with. So therefore, from these ideas that we have been seeing from Ralph Waldo Emerson, Milton Friedman, and now Adam Smith in his work Wealth of Nations, that capitalism is akin to obvious and simple system of natural liberty. Here we are at a concrete idea of what capitalism actually stands for. It is an economic system in which the means of production and distribution are privately or even corporately owned. Now, from this idea are two very big ideas coming. That is, economic individualism is one of the core around which capitalism revolves around. And from there on, two very important premises, that economic individual has two basic premises: pursuit of self-interest, and as against that, right to own private property. Now, these are two basic premises of economic individualism, which is closely connected to capitalism. Now, from there on, let's understand what are the characteristics of a capitalist system, or what actually defines an economic system driven by capitalism. Here it is: private property, capital accumulation, wage labor, voluntary exchange, price system, and competitive markets. So these are certain essential features that define capitalism, and these features, private property, capital accumulation, wage labor, voluntary exchange, price system, competitive markets, give us the insight into how an economic system, an economy based on capitalism, works and sustains. Bottomore wrote a very important book on capitalism, and from there on we would present few ideas. For Bottomore, capitalism is a mode of production in which capital in its various forms is the principal means of production. Now, capital may take the form of money or credit for the purchase of labor, power and materials of production of physical machinery. Now, these ideas we are quoting to you from Bottomore's book on capitalism, and this definition in itself is giving us a clear-cut analysis of what and how a capitalist system works. Now, as we are taking a learning forward, this discussion will now have a next question to deliberate on: why profit? Why is it that capitalism gives a lot of focus on the idea of profit? See, capitalism, firstly we have to understand, is a form of commodity production, and at the same time we as learners must understand that mere production of commodity is not capitalism. This is why the notion of profit is connected with the idea and the process of production of commodity. Commodity production is the production of goods for exchange, production of goods for sale, and this is what distinguishes an economic activity from a non-economic activity. And this is why when we are trying to understand and deliberate on capitalism, the idea of profit has to be always taken into account. Now, next terminology that is very peculiar to understand a capitalist economic system is commodity. Let us ask ourselves, what could commodity mean? Commodity could be ability to satisfy some human want. So, capacity of a commodity to be exchanged for another commodity gives it the exchange value, and this exchange value is essential. This idea to be able to satisfy some human want is what are defining features while we understand a commodity in an economic system. Now, when we are trying to understand world capitalist economy, world capitalist system, the history has certain very important ideas and aspects for all of us to learn forward. As you all know, that when we try to reflect on history, there was emergence of agrarian capitalism. Let's understand what did this agrarian capitalism implied. There was end of manorial system. If we try to look at the history of England, if we try to look at the history of Europe, workers were employed with time, expanding money-based economy came into existence. The landlords and tenants wanted to increase the productivity of agriculture so as to make profit, and all these processes signified the emergence of agrarian capitalism, that with the end of the manorial system, workers were employed. One witnessed the rise of money-based economy, and therein attempts were made to increase the productivity of agriculture to make profit. Now, at the same time, alongside agrarian capitalism, another aspect that we must take into account is mercantilism. Now, at this hour, the views of the economist Karl Polanyi are very essential to understand that hallmark of capitalism then therefore is the establishment of generalized markets for what he called fictitious commodities. Now, what are these fictitious commodities? Land, labor, money. So, this is how theorization has been done about capitalism, looking at the aspects from history. Now, capital, commercial trade always existed for much of history. However, what was different in earlier trade and commercial, but perhaps that it was in the nature of a barter system, and somewhere it did not lead to industrialization or dominate the production process of society. Looking at that time of history wherein commercial trade did exist, but however there was no such movement for industrialization and so that it could dominate the production process of society, what was needed was set of conditions, specific technologies of mass production, ability to privately own and trade in means of production, a class of workers willing to sell their labor power for a living. And with time, we see that definite contextual forces ensured with the rise of industrial revolution that capitalism becomes the main economic system. And this capitalism, therefore, with its various aspects, processes and concepts, began to have a stake not only in the economic system but also in policy making, public choice and other aspects of society. Some of the issues that people often discuss while understanding the drawbacks of a capitalist economic system: rent seeking, regulatory capture, special interest politics. Now, there are various forms of capitalism, and now we will be trying to understand these various forms of capitalism, and these forms of capitalism will give us an idea about the history and evolution and what are the future prospects and challenges that lie once we are trying to learn and debate on the future of the world economic capitalist system. There was this idea of democratic capitalism. Edward Yonkins, in his book Capitalism and Commerce, gives this idea where there is an economy based on free markets. There is a democratic polity, and this democratic polity is based on pluralism. Individuals have different opinions here. And an example of democratic capitalism where the economy is based on free markets marked by democratic polity, pluralism, individuals having different opinions can be seen with the founding fathers of United States. Yes, they believed in democratic capitalism, and therefore in the United States Constitution, which is the shortest constitution in the world, there is this idea that is liberty and equality. They form the core of the United States Constitution. Now, from there on comes finance capitalism. Now, finance capitalism is about pursuit of profit, purchase and sale of financial products, lending money at a specified interest rate. And an example of financial capital that we can see is in the realm of real estate. Yes, in the realm of real estate, these examples of the process of financial capitalism are seen, where the buyers and the sellers both are in pursuit of profit. There is purchase and sale of financial products, and money is given at a specific rate of interest in order to get better return on their investment done. Another variant of capitalism is laissez-faire capitalism. Now, in this laissez-faire capitalism, there is total absence of rule. Laissez-faire, the French word being let be alone. Herein, how the economic forces operate is government leaves the people alone regarding all economic activities. So here is laissez-faire capitalism, where there is total absence of rule. Now, laissez-faire capitalism is always understood with reference to negative liberalism, wherein the area of individual freedom is never open for any kind of restrictions. Now, after laissez-faire capitalism, another variant of capitalism was the mercantilism. Mercantilism has its own role in the history and evolution of capitalism. Now, example of mercantilism can be seen from that it is like early form of capitalism. There are lots of examples in the late 16th century which tells us how mercantilist activities operated. Wealth of a nation is thought to be increased through a well-managed balance of trade with other nations. So, herein what we are seeing that how mercantilism was a unique way, and this mercantilism paved way for an advanced or newer version of capitalism. Mercantilism is also said to be an early form of capitalism. Mercantilism existed in the late 16th century, where trade as an engine of growth is seen to be increasing wealth of a nation. So therefore, mercantilism gave primacy that wealth of a nation is increased through a well-managed balance of trade with other nations. Now listeners, let's understand two other aspects of capitalism: crony capitalism. Now, crony capitalism signifies a situation where somewhere business success or certain interest group success is related to strategic influences that they have within the decision making apparatus. Another variant of capitalism, advanced capitalism, wherein societies where capitalism is firmly established and there is acceptance of status quo, little activism over fundamental issues, and at the same time there is prevalence of consumerism. So therefore, you're seeing that these variants of capitalism are telling us about how a capitalist world economy, how a capitalist process operates side by side. Crony capitalism, a situation where somewhere a business success is related to strategic influences. Now, this also tells us about the drawbacks of the working and operation of a capitalist system. Advanced capitalism, where somewhere capitalism is firmly established, there is acceptance of status quo, and which is also marked by consumerism. Another variant of capitalism is state capitalism. Now, the features of state capitalism are that state-owned industry play a key role within the market economy. Difference between state capitalism and state socialism is important to factor in here. That is, in the state socialism system, there is no room for private enterprise and competition. However, in state capitalism, there is room for competition. So, and therefore, here is another variant of capitalism, wherein state-owned industries play a key role within the market economy, and this has to be seen in differentiation from state socialism, where there is no room for private enterprise and competition. Another variant of capitalism is popular capitalism. Now, popular capitalism is associated with the name of conservative leader David Cameron, who says that everyone benefits from economic growth. Let's make effort for a system where all benefit, and therefore at the same time one has to think about degree of redistribution, the need for certain social welfare safety, and this is what defines popular capitalism. Now, at the same time, there are other forms of capitalism, that is turbo capitalism, wherein there is unregulated form of capitalism, there is financial deregulation, privatization, lower tax on higher earners. So, all these are features of turbo capitalism, and all these are part of our learning journey on the capitalism, types of capitalism, history and evolution of capitalism. Now, once we are trying to understand the contemporary world capitalist economy, it is also important to put in the other variable or aspect that is surrounding the world economy, that is globalization. Globalization, at the very outset, we understand that it is a social phenomenon. It is a defining feature of the contemporary world. One of the impact of globalization has been growing and expanding worldwide interconnectedness. One of the remarkable outcomes of globalization is integration among the people, cultures, economies, politics of different nations. Now, globalization is nothing new. It even existed in the past. However, the contemporary nature of neoliberal driven globalization has led to space-time compression. The world is being defined as a global village. Now, in this global village, how does the economic system prevail? And herein where our understanding of world capitalist system becomes very pertinent. Now, globalization no doubt has a profound impact on our lives in terms of economic, political, social activities. Today we are seeing that with rise of rampant communication, information, technology, there is rise of global market system. And with the rise of these global market system, we have to see that how there is an operation of transnational networks of production, trade, finance. At the same time, there is intensification of the money flow in the global domain. Now, with this global market system, transnational ties, rampant money flow, that we often talk about plastic money, the new form of money, digital money, the new form of money, it is very essential to see how are the forces of communication, transport networks crucial to operation of world capitalist system. There are issues of economic importance, information, communication, transport and networks all together jointly built in, all together jointly work to enable world capitalist system to maintain itself. Now we'll be looking at what is the relation between globalization, capitalism and world capitalist economy. And for us to decipher this link between globalization and the process of capitalism at large, the idea of modes of production is very important to understand. Now, modes of production, it is a theory of human history built on the material conditions of production and on the social relations of production. The idea, the concept of mode of production is a useful concept for history of human production arrangements. As we take our understanding on evolution of capitalism, this idea of mode of production is something that will link capitalism with globalization. Now, after feudalism, after the end of feudalism, there was specialization in crafts. The world witnessed development of tools. The world economy found more and more of production for exchange. One witnessed people moving to cities, and at the same time there were mechanical technologies that were innovated and improved, and this led to increase in economic activity. With this increase in economic activity, the world economy witnessed a certain shift to the industrial sector, wherein there was expanding markets for commodity trading. Now, with this expanding market for commodity trading, one witnesses that capitalist world system becomes more and more ingrained in the world system. Now, as we are taking our discussion forward, we have to make a difference between capitalism and communism. See, by communism we mean a social system in which countries' trade and industry are controlled by the community, the group, and the share of each individual is dependent on the ability and needs. And therefore, when we are trying to understand capitalism here, capitalism right in the beginning we saw that it is built on the foundation of economic individualism. So therefore, capitalism gives much more primacy to individual rights. Communism therefore is more attuned to propagate community rights. Now, once we are trying to understand this distinction between capitalism and communism, an important perspective on how capitalism operates in the world economy was given to us with the world systems theory. This was developed by American sociologist Emanuel Wallerstein, wherein the focus was approach to world history and social change, wherein some countries benefit while others are exploited. This theory emphasizes the social structure of global inequality. Now, how does it do that? It tries to show us the world in the form of a system with a three-level hierarchy: the core, periphery, and the semi-periphery. The core are dominant capitalist countries that exploit peripheral countries for labor and raw materials, and all of it is shown in the form of a cyclical process wherein capitalism is one of the driving ideas for driving motivators for the core countries to exploit the peripheral countries. Now, once we are trying to understand the operation of capitalist world system, it is very essential to see that how the capitalist world system has been also having new issues. The idea of international capitalism is important for us to focus here. We all know that capitalism is a system of open economies interacting together. Now, this capitalism has witnessed a shift from national capitalism to global capitalism, and herein the idea of international capitalism is important to understand, that is, system of interacting and competing national capitalist economy. Therefore, now the shift is from national to global capitalism. Now, once we try to see that how this within this shift from national to global capitalism, today capitalism and the world capitalist economy therefore has a much more wider ambit. When we see it, when what we saw with the end of feudalism, agrarian capitalism, mercantilism, today capitalism is way much more entrenched in the world system. So therefore, dependency approach in the work of Andy Gunder Frank, the world system theory in the work of Immanuel Wallerstein, it is trying to look at this systemic nature of capitalism as a worldwide phenomena over several centuries. So therefore, once we are in this phase of global capitalism, one has to acknowledge the fact that capitalism has entered a new global phase, and this is linked to the process of economic globalization. This is linked to various dimensions of globalization. Today, when we try to look at the world economy, lots of multinational and transnational organizations exist. Today, the largest of transnational organizations have assets and annual sales far in excess of gross domestic product of most of the countries. Let us have a look at some of the transnational organizations and the kind of important role they play while doing their part in the world economy. We name of General Motors, Shell, Toyota, Unilever, Volkswagen, Nestle, Sony, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Kodak, Xerox, Japanese trading houses. Now, all of these organizations, when we try to understand them, they have more economic power at their disposal. Their global reach has also expanded. Though no doubt most of the TNCs are legally domiciled in the USA, Japan and Europe, one cannot do away with the fact that transnational organizations and the multinational organizations are playing an important role in the world economy, and all of them are driven by capitalism. And the driving motivators of capitalism, however, are also witnessing change. Today there is an idea that forces of profit, forces of the corporate have to be in tune, in tandem, much responsive to the needs of society, polity and human being at large. Let us understand top countries by GDP. The top countries by GDP in our world economy right now: the United States, China, Japan, Germany, United Kingdom, India and France. And this is from the recent UN data that we are quoting. Now let's have a look at top industries that are having an important say in the world capitalist economy: consumer products and services, logistics and transportation, business products and services, construction, real estate, retail. Now, these are industries that are driving the nation in order to ensure best outcome for their organizations, for their companies, for their people engaged in these economic activities to get the best for them. So, therefore, it's very essential to understand the composition of the world economy in terms of the top countries for the GDP and the top industries wherein which they are engaged. Now, when we look at the world structure, today the G7 is very important. While we understand the world capitalist economy, G7 is International Intergovernmental Economic Organizations. They are 7 largest IMF described advanced economies in the world. Who are the G7 countries? Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, United Kingdom and United States. With time, G7 began to be reformed to G8, and now G8 has been reformed to add more countries in the form of G20 in order to be a better representative of the changing economic realities, of the changing global perspectives that are operating in the world polity right now. Now, when we are trying to look at world capitalist economy and juxtapose it with globalization, we have to see that today state is no longer the only actor in international relations. Today, international organizations are having an equal say and an important space alongside the state actor. No doubt, when we try to understand international and global affairs, the realists would say that statism leading to self-help, leading to survival, the 3S are the guiding contours of any activity. The neoliberalism agenda says that state is important. However, there are other important actors also that are playing an important role. And here in the idea of international organization, 3 very important international organizations: the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, whose aim is to promote global financial stability, encourage international trade; the WTO, which is also a global association, it is a multilateral treaty. Its aim is to promote fair trade between nations, followed by the World Bank, that talks about, which is an international organization whose goal is to reduce poverty through financial assistance. Now, there's a joint report that we will be looking at right now. No doubt, therefore, globalization has increased the need for closer cooperation between multilateral institutions, and this is also a defining feature of the world capitalist economy, that there is a need for closer cooperation between these multilateral institutions because the issues of global affairs are much more contested and complex now. Because for the free flow of capital, for the right adequate flow of goods and services, you need adequate balancing of rules, norms with the multilateral institutions and the different states who are part of these trading agreements. We present to you this important report which I have taken from the website of worldbank.org. The report is about reinvigorating trade and inclusive growth. Now, this is a joint publication of the IMF, WTO and World Bank. Now, here we see that for the first time, 3 organizations, important world organizations, are coming together to think about trade and inclusive growth. And the report's summary or the gist is that in today's world of fast moving change in the global economy, there is a need more than ever to ensure that the rules, policies and practices governing global trade are modernized, are in tune with the needs of the polity, with the needs of the people, with the needs of larger stability in international governance and cooperation. So therefore, all these ideas have a huge bearing on the working of the world capitalist system also, that it is good to focus on profit. However, mere focus on profit would devoid the organization, would devoid the national economy, would devoid the larger global apparatus from sustainability. For a large framework, long-term good approach, it is essential to balance out everything. So therefore, once we are looking at this aspect of reinvigorating trade and inclusive growth report by these three important international organizations that are having an important bearing on the operation of world capitalist system, that there is the global economy is going through period of change. Now in this change, there is an all the more refined need for rules, policies and practices governing global trade, and for them to be modernized. Now once we look at this vast paraphernalia of the global world capitalist economy, at the same time we have to see that the operation of global capitalist system somewhere had its drawbacks also. Let's understand that today when we open the newspapers, there is this news about climate strike, and this climate strike, from the young to the old, is from countries across, is putting forward for the need for a debate on conditions of global capitalist breakdown. It is giving insights into the great power conflicts, and it is talking about the need to balance growth with sustainability. It is pointing towards environmental crisis in the quest of adding more money to the growth and development coterie. Examples of climate strike could be seen in New York, Montreal March. We are all seeing it in newspapers every day, that nations are witnessing this climate strike. So therefore, the very idea of the quest to increase more and more production, the need to add and diversify more to the portfolio, the need to keep commodities in the flow, somewhere it is said that humans have imperiled environment. Therefore, there is a worldwide cry to denounce consumerism. No doubt, big businesses need profit. No doubt, profit is also very important. However, just to focus on the short term, that is business and the profit, but keeping the agenda from the long term, human stability, human survival, safety of the planet, there is a debate. We have lots of references of this which we can see from the World Socialist Web. So therefore, here we are seeing that today the idea of world capitalist economy has definitely entered a different zone. By different zone, we understand that there are pros to it, there are cons to it. There are very positive aspects to it, that capitalism is one of the best systems that offered human beings to make best out of their services and earn the livelihood in the best possible manner. At the same time, there is a debate on the exploitative tendencies of the capitalist agenda. So when we are trying to look at the idea of capitalist world economy today, we have to see that globalization has led to free movement of goods and services, and within this goods and services, one has to see that state is no longer the only important actor. States, it's competing its space with other market forces like multinational organization, international organizations, and therein there is also a redefining of the agenda of the larger global apparatus also, wherein issues of hard power, namely military, army, are being readjusted with reference to rising avenues of soft power, namely human resources, culture, economics, and therein too the operation of the world capitalist system has an important stake. So therefore, once we are trying to look back in rewind about the process of capitalism, it is very essential to understand that capitalism, as Adam Smith said, it is one of the most obvious and simple system of natural liberty. When we are trying to understand capitalism and the world capitalist economy, one has to factor in economic individualism, self-interest, and the right to own private property. Capitalism is a wide process marked by price system, competitive markets, capital accumulation, amongst others. However, at the same time, there is a debate that why too much focus on profit. There is a debate why exclude certain non-economic services which are equally important from the larger ambit of something that actually adds exchange value. For example, the way a mother at home nurtures children, why it is not included as an economic activity. It has its own unique ability to satisfy human want. However, it is excluded from the preview of inclusion in economic activity. So therefore, all these are issues that are being debated while we understand the operation of capitalism as a system, and this too has a bearing on other issues that has been raised in the operation of world capitalist economy. Capitalism has evolved from the emergence of agrarian capitalism to mercantilism. Commercial trade did exist. With time, it needed set of conditions, it needed set of rules in order to ensure right bargaining and space for the laborers, for the workers, to ensure that they can have their say in selling their labor power for a livelihood. Once we look at capitalism, it has various variants, and these various variants too give us an insight into the evolution of capitalism as a process for the world economy and its history too. Democratic capitalism we saw, finance capitalism, laissez-faire capitalism, and the drawbacks also that came with capitalism, rent-seeking, crony capitalism. All of them have a bearing too. Then once we try to look at how today can we, when we are living in a world of interconnectedness, can we give way to unregulated form of capitalism? The debate is there and we all have to think about it. Can financial deregulation and privatization balance out efficiency with the larger aspect of employment of the masses? There is a need for that. And at the same time, there is a debate on the level of taxation. So therefore, with integration of among people, among cultures, economics and politics, world trajectory had its own pros and cons. With the integration, there were idea that worldwide interconnectedness is leading us to much more choices and other aspects, and therefore the world capitalist system therein had an important role with the emergence of global market system, transnational networks of production, trade, finance, and the intensification of the money flow. Time and again, there are debates on the stability of the market. There are debates on the idea of volatility that is inherent in the economic process, and capitalism is often debated, and there is often asked for the need to redefine, remold itself in order to situate itself better in order to ensure better parity as it operates, and to balance out better the needs of environment, sustainability with the short term and the long term perspective. So therefore, in conclusion, we say that there is a need to transform and engage more with capitalism in order to benefit all sections of society. This is what often the idea of corporate philanthropy, corporate social responsibility puts forward, that is, let's add greater social value, community value to profit driven commercial agenda. Let's have an economic system where there is adequate for everyone to buy and sell, adequate for everyone to get earn together, but however at the same time, let's give back more to the society. Let's care more for our planet Earth.